Welcome to Leadership Synergized, the podcast where we learn from leaders who've been there, done that, and are still showing up to serve. I'm your host, Kevin Smith. Today's episode is especially meaningful as we celebrate leadership. I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Chris Baldwin, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources at Westfield Washington Schools. He's an educator, coach, and servant leader with more than 30 years of experience. Today, we're going to talk about people-centered leadership, growth, culture, transformation versus transaction. I had a chance to sit down in 2025 and do some live discussions with Dr. Baldwin, and I know you're going to learn from this wonderful, wonderful leader. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Smith, and as you can see on the screen, so honored to have our special guest today, Mr. Chris Baldwin. Chris is an assistant superintendent responsible for human resources at Westfield Washington School Corporation. So excited to have a man of his experience, educational background, athletic coaching, and we're going to talk about some topics near and dear to Chris's heart. Mr. Baldwin, a few weeks back, we were talking about what was our topic today, what would be relevant for leadership. And, we decided we were going to talk about transactional and transformational leadership. We're talking about transactional versus transformational leadership. And you're watching Leadership Synergized Plus, and I know you're getting a great deal out of this. And actually, if you look behind me over my shoulder and still, that T is for transformation. Too many times as humans, we limit ourselves in the natural to talk about transitioning. Transformation is getting into the heart and soul of self and heart and soul of others and truly changing lives and building value. And Mr. Baldwin, what a great representative and model you are, the consistency you have. And I think what everyone watching today and will watch the archive version in the future, they're seeing that consistency and constancy of purpose that I believe defines why Westfield Washington is growing as rapidly as they are for you and your entire leadership team. But I've also had a chance to talk to individuals who lead your buildings, and that passion, it's consistent. That culture is consistent, and that's not an easy thing to do. Transactional focus alone, I think you would agree, doesn't accomplish that. But it's easy for us, Mr. Baldwin. It's easy as a leader when you get so busy, you get so challenged with all the work you have to do, to set aside the transformational focus and just get the task done in that regard. Or when we get fatigued at times, it's easy with all the pressures we have in life to go back to that. Talk a bit, if you will, for our viewers and listeners. How do you overcome that push and pressure in that regard?
I think it's a good question. It's a tough challenge with that to do. In that regard, what I find is I just get a feel at the time that the communication that we're having, whatever, is leading to more transactional. We're not sitting down. And so I force myself to pick up the phone or just go out and visit somebody in person, get around the school district and do that in person, because there's nothing like having that in-person conversation with that. So that's there's just a time when I feel like I just need to get out in the buildings and be face to face and be visible. I think it's all about being visible as a leader, and having those conversations and forcing yourself to do it. It's much easier, I'll be honest, it's much easier to sit in my office and be transactional and answer emails and to do that. It takes effort, and you at times you have to, it sounds crazy, but I even put it, I live by my calendar. I even put those things on my calendar to say, go out, like just force yourself, because then I'm going to follow it and it reminds me. I need those constant reminders to get out and do that. So that's one trick that I use to just force myself. Then, as we've talked, I read a lot, reading a lot of books. As I brought it with me today as we talk, this is one that I can't tell people enough, that even if you're in education at all, especially coaching, it's called Inside Out Coaching, how sports can transform lives. It's all about transformational versus transactional. And every time I read a book like that, I sit and I note, and it forces me to think, how can I be better at that? Because just like anybody else, there's times when I've been maybe too short with a conversation or short with an email, and realizing there's more to it. I need to go talk to somebody and force myself to do it. Or I just sit there and, when we're having meetings, listening about I need to reach out to that person. So just picking up on cues and things that I hear and being visible and being out and about. That's how I force myself to do it and know what's going on. Um, because the best leaders I've had are the ones that are visible, that are open, have an open door, that feel comfortable for people to come in and talk to them. So those are the things that I force myself to do. But like I said, it's reminding myself, putting just straight reminders. It sounds silly, but forcing myself to go out and be with people and connect in buildings and walk around, and also just by reading and saying, you know what, I need to do a better job of this. I need to really do a better job here. So I think, when you have time, you always need to get that different perspective of even as I've been in it 31 years, I learned stuff. I mean, I've learned it I've been so impressed with the guests that you've had on, on this podcast. Gene Mattingly, I talked was your guest last month, and I thought it was so unique. He's a banker during the day, but a baseball coach, but just some of those inspirational things, that those are good reminders that there's others that are doing it. And every time you pick up on little things, just one or two things that you could do a little bit differently. So it's just go about, seeing speakers, going to conferences, picking up on those little things that you can become more transformational in your job. So
Thank you for
and we
sharing.
talked a little bit too, I think, and this is not to pick on necessarily, I think the people that are in the business world that are really transformational make a difference, right? But sometimes, that looks a little bit different. I love that in the K through 12 world, that's our focus, is our mission is to be transformational with students. And also do the same thing with staff. So I think that's why I've always gravitated to K through 12. I remember thinking, well, I'm just going to go into business. And I had a Spanish teacher in high school watch me. We used to teach Spanish to elementary students, and she saw how much I enjoyed it. And that's what it took. I think we all have somebody in our lives that maybe nudged you. And if it wasn't for her and maybe some of my coaches saying this would be, have you ever thought about doing that? I don't know if I'd maybe be in an office somewhere not enjoying what I was doing. I went down that path and I've never regretted it one bit. Working in K through 12, because I just love the people. I mean, there's something different about teachers and being around teachers and educators. The people in our office here that you've met are all educators at heart. So even though they're doing administrative jobs, they're educators. So that it's just a different feel when you get around those people. And it's inspirational. It really is to be around them. And what's great too, we get to always hire new teachers that are coming in and bringing new ideas, and that's refreshing too, to do that.
And you mentioned inspirational. That's really the heart of the opportunity as a transformational leader, right? To be able to be motivating in all aspects. And sometimes leaders, I believe, kind of avoid the transformational piece because they see inspiring, motivational opportunities maybe as being somewhat overwhelming. I get it too. In other words, every individual is just that, an individual. That's why we're challenged to live life together and not alone in that piece. But that can be very daunting at times. And I think, Mr. Baldwin, speaking with your experience, and I share a similar type of experience, but, athletic coaches have that experience to where they're constantly having to inspire, motivate, encourage, and have individuals work towards gaining a skill or task that maybe they've struggled with a great deal in the past.
Yeah, totally. And as you know, the best coaches are also the best teachers. It's not like you don't all of a sudden become a great coach and you're not a great, like that's who you are as a person. Those great coaches are also great teachers, and it's really important to focus on that. And you may not realize it at the time, but what and again, it's not about me or about what you get, but it's awesome. So I'm old now, right? So I'm interviewing former students that are now becoming teachers. And what's really cool is to listen to them say, Mr. Baldwin, I remember in your class when we did this really neat assignment, or when we really did this kind of thing. And that's really cool to have those experiences. But, as we've talked before, Dr. Smith, we in Westfield, we hire for those, like we specifically in our hiring process focus on very student-centered individuals rather than teacher-centered. That, as you said, one of the big keys of being transformational in coaching and teaching is pushing students past the point that's comfortable of where they can, where they don't think they can go. And you believe in them and you push them and you get them to accomplish something that they never thought they could do. And that's awesome. That's when you hear that answer. It's that light bulb moment. Like I asked the question, why did you want to be a teacher, or did you get into teaching? That's the first question I ask in my interview. And it's that answer of, I love seeing that moment when they get something they never thought they could get when they learn something. And that's right. That's who you really want as your teacher. Those people that are in it to help others and to get them to learn. That's what you get out of it, right? That difference that you make. I had an opportunity just last week to go to the high school. We have over 60 students that want to go into education in college. That's pretty cool that we have that, especially as you hear about shortages in education. And I talked to them a lot about what other job can you go into that you can make the difference, that you have the opportunity to make a lasting difference with students and people over time. And I just still think that's really important. So that's why we hire for the transformational piece. We really do. I mean, everybody. I have an interview that I go through, and the philosophy is, I can help you become a better teacher, but I can't help you become a better person. Does that make sense? Mm. So who you are as a person is who you are. That doesn't mean you're, good or bad. It just may not be a good fit with us as a teacher. If you're not very student-centered, you're not in it for student learning, you're not in it for relationship building. Those are things. I don't ask one question, Dr. Smith, about how well you know math or social studies or language arts. Now, is that important? Yes, you have to know your subject area, and that's important. But I honestly, that's for further down the interview process. I want to know who you are as a person, because if you got all those building blocks as a person, I can help you with best practices. I can help you become a better teacher. I can't help you become. My hope is that we've done that for a lot of years, and my hope is that is why people want to come here, because of the teachers. I mean, you talked about, as we grow, we have a growing special education population that in our district. And you know why? The leadership that has been in our special education department have been transforming. People hear about what we offer and how we support parents and students, and they're like, I want to go to Westfield because they do that. So that's the reputation you want. It leads to challenges with staffing and things like that, but it's because of those people that you have and the reputation there. And that's what's important to any organization, any culture that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. You just laid out and described why Westfield is so successful in that piece. And you just explained exactly the modeling for organizations that truly want to put their resources first. That's how you go about doing it and ensuring that team and that piece. Thank you again, my friend. I appreciate you being here today.
And again, thanks for being transformational in my life. I'm truly say that it's very special, and I appreciate that the relationship we formed over the last few years.
Thank you for watching Leadership Synergized, Leadership Synergized Plus. This is where you can talk to people and learn from leaders from all walks of life, various industries, and hopefully help you as you put together your leadership toolbox. Until next time, I'm Kevin Smith, your host. Thank you again to Mr. Chris Baldwin. God bless you. Wow, what a powerful conversation with Dr. Baldwin, who reminded us that leadership isn't about titles, that it's about people, relationships, and service, always. From navigating rapid growth to protecting culture and community, Chris shared wisdom every leader can apply right now. Thank you for joining us on Leadership Synergized, where leaders from all walks of life help you build your leadership toolbox. I'm Kevin Smith. Until next time, lead with intention, serve with heart, and never forget, leadership is influence. God bless, my friend.